Welcome back to another edition of the Throws Doc Podcast. I'm your doc, Dr. Charles Inferno, where we're writing scripts to cure your throwing ailments. The ailments we're going to try and cure today maybe don't have too much to do with throwing per se, but more personal or professional ailments of finding mentors and what we would do about that or how we go about that. And the reason why I want to talk about that today is one of the, more recent videos I posted, shared on YouTube. I had a comment left, by someone who I deemed to be a very close friend, a mentor, if you will, and Dan Chambliss, Dr. Chambliss. And I've talked about him before, and how Dan is really, essentially he's a national treasure in the field of sociology, and he's written some prominent works with regard to Olympic athletes and the making of Olympic champions, and other books about teaching and college and what have you. And why I'm so thankful for Dan, and I look to him as a mentor, because when I was going through my doc program at Fisher, and I was still trying to figure out, what I wanted to do after the fact. I remember our professor in class at the time, when we were talking about leaderships and ethics, talked about mentors and how to find a mentor and why it was important to network and try and find feedback or at least find others that have common interests as you and help them, or they in turn might be able to help you if you have questions or just thoughts about anything. And we have a mentoring program at our district for staff, for teachers, for administrators. So there's always somebody, at least in my case, that we could talk to or I could talk to if I need help or have a question about something. And why I want to talk about mentors today is, like I said, Dan left a comment in one of my YouTube videos where we talked about happiness and finding happiness and how we might define that and how we go about that and how we define happiness, or I define it, as different from somebody else. And he left a nice comment, and it just got me thinking that almost 8 years ago now, it's amazing, I emailed Dan when I found out that he taught at Hamilton College, and asked him if I could spend some time with him on my way back from a trip from Albany. And he said yes, and I think it's turned into a great friendship where at least I can bounce ideas off of him, and I bug him about getting that next book started on the making of Olympic champions. Throwers edition is what we're going to focus on, hopefully. So Dan, when you listen to this, hopefully that prompts us to get the ball rolling. But finding a mentor, I think, depending on what your field or what field you're in, what program, what you're interested in doing moving forward, is really going to dictate what that's going to look like for you. So Dan, my process with finding Dan, I found a book, Making of Olympic Champions. I found this book after I read his article on the stratification of Olympic swimming and how it's really cut and dry, really easy to ascertain whether you are a better swimmer than somebody else because of where you finish and your place and your time. And I was thinking about that with my dissertation, but not so much from an athletic perspective, but a teaching perspective. So my initial conversation with Dan was not so much about the making of Olympic throwers, but how his framework for the making of Olympic champions, how that could be implemented with schools and with teachers. And at the time, my dissertation was on early childhood ed, so really a focus on that and how we can really pinpoint and be able to better understand how we can support our teachers based on their strengths and lesser strengths. So in Finding Dan, we've talked about track research, throwing research, life research, grit research, and it's nice to have somebody in your circle that you can talk to, that in the relationship, the 2 or 3 people can collaborate and work together, and I guess just support each other, right? So I'm trying to support Dan with some of the projects and things that he's working on. He's a great ear for me when it comes to the research that I'm focusing on and what I've published and what I want to move forward with. And how to go about that, like I said. So it depends on who the person is, excuse me, what you're interested in, and what you can also offer them, right? So, excuse me. So in the mentor program that we have at our school, it's not just give, but what can we learn from new staff? And it's really important to have, back and forth communication about that, because I learn something new from staff every day. I learn something new from our administrators. Hopefully they learn something new from me, hopefully. And that's how we're trying to move forward with our relationships. And I think email, reaching out, especially with social media now, it's so easy to find someone's email address, send them a DM, include them in something, tag them in something, to maybe initiate the future conversation about something. With Dan, it worked out really well because he's right here in Western New York, so it's an easy 2-hour drive. We have our own little place where we meet and we get together and hang out in Syracuse, and it works, for us. But it was an initial email, so reach out to, I guess, figure out what you want to do, who you want to work with or get feedback from or be mentored by, and why is that person the person that you're selecting, right? Why do you want to work with that person, and what else can you offer them? And then send the message, right? Email and social media, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, and hope to get things started. But I think really it's just going to be an initiation process that you as an individual, whoever you want to work with, reach out, tell them why you're interested in working with them, what you can offer them, what you're looking for as far as mentor back, and just see how that conversation goes. I don't think it has to be too complicated. A simple ask, and if they say no or they're turn you down, just find somebody else. Ask somebody else that you might be interested in working with and soliciting feedback and from and collaborating with also. Just a simple email. And I think just thinking about conversation and how we engage with people. Don't be afraid to do that. I've shared the Judd story a million times, but I was looking for help, and I emailed arguably the best coach in the United States and asked them if I could come and hang out, and he said yes. So the answer is always no if you don't ask, and then if you do ask and the answer is no, try and find somebody else, or try and figure out why you may have been turned down. Maybe they're too busy, or maybe they have other things on their plate. Who knows? But be persistent, be courageous, ask, and you never know. The answer might be yes. Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Throws Doc Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Charles Inferno, and have a great day.